Hey everyone, it is Kevin Henry. Welcome back to another edition of the Clubhouse Chatter podcast. I am thrilled today to be joined by someone I'm glad to be call a friend, actually, as well as the play-by-play voice for the Oakland A's, and that is Jenny Cavnar. Jenny, how are you today?
Good, good. How are you, Kevin?
I am great. It's good to see you. I'm so glad we can catch up. You are incredibly busy, so thank you for taking a few minutes to do this.
Of course, of course. Happy to.
Well, let's start with what a crazy year this has been for you. How have you managed with everything going on that you do? How have you managed to kind of stay focused and really embrace this role with the A's?
Yeah, I mean that's been I guess the biggest challenge. My husband and I were talking the other day about if you were to tell us a year ago everything that was going to transpire in our personal lives and both in our work lives, like we wouldn't have believed you. There's no way. There's no way it would have happened. But somehow we made it work. We sold our house. We were building a house. We moved, and then I got offered a job in a different state. That was a dream job, really, and a opportunity of a lifetime. So we huddled together. We got our families on board. We have two small children, so there was a lot of logistics to work out, and I think that's been more of the challenge is just the home life and making sure everyone's taken care of and feeling good in the transition. But like I said, a dream of a lifetime to be able to be the voice of a team and to get this opportunity with the Oakland A's is so cool. It's a franchise that has a really deep history, as we know, that goes back to one of the original teams in 1901, and having spanned three different cities so far, making the transition next year to Sacramento, and then ultimately to Las Vegas. There's a lot going on that a lot of baseball fans hear about that's not in between the lines, and so my job is to focus on what is in between the lines, and it's been so exciting. This athletics team, they really are an exciting team to watch on so many levels. They've struggled offensively, but the pitching performances they've been able to get to that back end of the bullpen that is absolute nails and has flamethrowers back there. When it's Miller time, it's probably the most exciting time right now in all of Major League Baseball. So I've just really had a blast getting to know the young talent on this team and getting to watch them develop over the course of the year after a really slow, struggling start out of the gate, and then kind of developing into the team they become at the end of April into early May.
Yeah, 2.5 games out of first place heading into today's
It's
game.
crazy, right?
Yeah, it is crazy. So what has been the most surprising part in your mind? Is it the development of that back into the bullpen that you mentioned, or what's caught your eye?
Well, I think the most surprising part, and really when you cover any team, this always seems to develop. And I remember, you and I both covered the Rockies for a long time, and Bud Black always said, when you break camp, it's not just your 26-man roster, it's going to take the 40-man. And sometimes you don't even realize who's going to be the big impact on the team because they weren't there at spring training. And for this athletics team, they made a lot of moves very late in the game to help that bullpen. In Austin Adams, they got TJ McFarland, a couple veteran guys that have bounced around a bit. And those guys have been clutch in being able to bridge that gap so you can see that young talent in Lucas Ursig and in Mason Miller at the back end of the pen. But also picking up Tyler Nevin was probably the biggest thing for this team. They were supposed to have Miguel Andujar, who was going to be a very big part of the outfield and really of the offense. And he got hurt late in spring. They were going through some struggles with Esteury Ruiz and trying to get this, new developed mechanics of his swing down. And they wanted him to take some more time with that in the minor leagues, but he was kind of forced onto the roster. They ended up making a move with him when they found Tyler Nevin, able to acquire him from the Baltimore Orioles after he was DFA'd. And he has made a huge difference in being able to be a glue for this offense. Right now he's on a 9-game hit streak. He's had multiple multi-hit games. He's found the home run in his game. And again, this is a kid that was a first-round draft pick. You go back to the Colorado Rockies drafting him in the first round and him just really not being able over the course of his major league career so far to find a home and find a team. And I think sometimes that's what the Athletics have been. They've been a place where guys can get an opportunity, get that every day playing time if it so allows in terms of platoons and throwing out different lineups. But I think Tyler Nevin has made a huge difference as of late to be able to take some of that offensive pressure off of some of the guys that have felt it. Zach Geloff, I really kind of believe he's one of those guys right now on the injured list, unfortunately. But he needed a breather. He needed to be able to have somebody else go to the top of the lineup and fill the gap so he could just kind of like take a deep breath and let his offense come to him. And sometimes with young players, I think that's the fun part of watching the development is you see the struggles, right? They saw some success early on last year when a couple of these guys got called up. I think of Lawrence Butler, I think of Zach Eloff, and then coming into this, sophomore season, it's like, okay, we now have to perform every day. This is our team. We are the future. And sometimes when you put so much pressure on yourself, the opposite result happens. And so being able to alleviate a little bit of that for some of these guys, you're starting to see, okay, they can take a deep breath. They don't have to be the guy every day. There's multiple weapons, and they can figure it out. But yeah, I think it's been fun to watch the grit too. Like the grit of the Oakland A's is really, really present. I mean, you think about Oakland as a city, and I think this team represents that city so well. And again, I know the challenges and I know what fans are going through, and I really do feel for them. I really do. I understand, like, it is so hard that you're going to lose your team to a different city. I feel that for them. But I love that this group of guys specifically just kind of represents the Oakland Athletics so well in terms of just being guys from a lot of different walks of life, a lot of different walks in their career, from young to old, to trying to find a resurgence. And somehow they mix together, and you're able to really see, I think, for the first time in Mark Kotze's career, his grit and his determination as a manager. The kid gloves are off. The last 2 years, it was a lot of like, let's just get through this. Let's figure this out. And now it's like, no, here's our expectations. They're set. Let's meet them and let's go win some ball games. And I think that's what you're seeing in the last couple of weeks.
And obviously it's been a surprise, but it's as you said, a lot of it goes back to that development. And I think that they're, as you said, a great fan base, a lot of fans who are so passionate
Absolutely.
about the A's and still follow the A's. And for a broadcaster, how is it for you to thread that needle between what's going on in the field and knowing what's going on in the stands and behind the scenes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being able to work with a guy like Dallas Braden, who not only grew up close by in Stockton, California, but put on the Oakland A's uniform for his entire career, I really lean on him because he is so connected to that fan base. And for me, growing up in Colorado, we didn't have the Colorado Rockies till I was later in elementary school. So our teams growing up were teams we got on the air. It was the Atlanta Braves, it was the Chicago Cubs. And really, we did follow the Oakland A's because the Bash brothers were so hot at that time. And we all thought it was so cool to either, pretend to be Jose Canseco or Mark McGuire when we were out playing wiffle ball. And so I've always kind of appreciated what that fan base had and how they've grown over the years. And then, we know Walt Weiss so well. And I remember him as a rookie of the year there. And then obviously his career that came on to Colorado. And there's been a lot of crossover of just watching players through that organization in the 80s, the 90s. And then, Moneyball created this big idea of the concept of who the Oakland A's are. And I think nationally people watched that movie and kind of just assumed this is the team and this is who they've become. But I think for me, being able to get into the games day to day, it's about the players on the field now. And I have to focus on that and focus on their development. And again, coming from a background where I saw this a lot with the Colorado Rockies, I saw young players, young talent come up. I'd be doing a disservice if I took away from the focus of that and that product and that development on the field. And so really my job as a play-by-play is first pitch to last pitch. We're going to celebrate the game. We're going to celebrate baseball. We're going to celebrate the players who are on the field right now.
Yeah. And you mentioned Dallas Braden, and you have a personal connection with Dallas as well. I know he and your husband were very close growing up. So that's been a very cool thing as well for you.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I mean, I think chemistry is like the number one thing when you get into a position of being a play-by-play broadcaster with your analyst. And so having that out of the gate felt so comfortable with Dallas. He and my husband grew up in Stockton together. They played on different travel ball teams together. They competed against each other in high school. And really, since I met my husband about 14 years ago, I've known Dallas. I met him shortly after. And so, we've gone on vacations together. We've all got married in the same year. We've had kids at the same time. We've talked baseball a lot over the course of the last decade in friendship settings. And so to now kind of know and understand his passion and where he's coming from, it allows me, I think, in the broadcast booth to set that up, know what's coming, know where he's going, know what he wants to talk about, how he sees the game. And so it's just been been really fun to have a friend that you get to hang out with for 3 hours and call baseball games with.
I watch baseball. What's wrong with that? That's perfect.
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, and you've gotten this mantle now as the first woman, the primary play-by-play. All these things that have been thrown on you this year, and we talked about you dealing with that earlier. But I know in previous interviews you've talked about how that hopefully opens up the door for future generations as well. Do you kind of see yourself as joining some of these women who have been in baseball in the past as kind of a trailblazer? Or how do you view yourself right now in this role?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, to hear that word in your name, like that just doesn't feel right. I'm very humbled by this opportunity to live out a dream, absolutely. But I think I'm more humbled when I hear from that next generation and what they're doing. I got a tweet the other day. I think Tufts Baseball, it was an all female broadcast. There were 5 women, college age girls in the booth calling a game, doing the production of the game. And to me, that signified what we're doing is important. And it's so cool to know that that next wave has something to look forward to, has something to point to and say, there is an opportunity in that space for me. I love baseball. I like to talk about baseball, and there's an opportunity that that could be a job down the road. So I understand the importance of this role and where it's at. I also, and I think you know this about me, I'm really hard on myself and I want to get better in this role and I want to get better at this job and I want to grow. And I know that's not going to happen immediately. So I'm trying to just be in a space where every day I can get better at the job. I can get better at doing the day to day from preparation standpoint, behind the scenes to, actually the action and calling the game. And I know all that will come in time, but I'm really honored and I'm really humbled to be in that conversation and to get the opportunity, to have, like, we were in New York and I got to sit down with Susan Waldman and thank her for all the hard work that she's put in over the last several decades of doing a job with the Yankees on the radio side of things, and Melanie Newman, who's in Baltimore doing a similar role, kind of a utility role, and getting some play-by-play opportunity there. There's women calling games, and I know it's different to hear a woman's voice as background of baseball, but I don't think in 10 years it will be.
And that's a good thing for us girl dads. That's a really good thing that you're out there doing this. And again, so many have paved the way before you. And I think that's great. How do you talked about the preparation. What is it that you pick from other people's brains that go into your preparation or maybe even during a call during the game?
Yeah, I think prep work becomes so important, and it was really challenging for me in a way because I have been with the Rockies for the last 12 years, and I grew up, being in Colorado. So there's just kind of this innate history that I knew that I didn't really have to study or kind of gather because that was part of my life growing up. And so you get a lot of time at spring training to get to know players, kind of make different documentation of players that you can keep throughout the course of the season. So I was starting from scratch with the Oakland A's, and it's obviously a team that's had a lot of turnover year to year and continues to have a lot of turnover as the season's going on too. So you're quickly trying to get to know players, build that relationship, have a good background story on them, and then just keep up statistically with where they're at, some trends that are going on with them day to day, how it compares to the rest of the league. And then obviously you're preparing for the teams coming up that you're going to be broadcasting the A's against those teams. So for me, kind of the way the schedule's worked this year is really nice in terms of the balance of I'm doing all the road games and then a select few homestands. So really, when I'm on the road and I come home, I'm spending that time at home to, be with my family and be present here, but then also do work on the upcoming road trip and the teams they're going to be facing, the cities we're going to be going to. The game's also changed a lot, right? The pitch clock has changed the way we broadcast baseball. Before, there was a lot of storytelling time. There was a lot of like quote unquote dead air time that you had to fill. But we've found ourselves this year in a lot of 2 hour and 20-minute games, 2 hour and 30-minute games. The action's happening a lot quicker. And so you really have to be present in the game that's happening on the field. And I've learned a lot about my prep work during the day, getting it done, writing it in my, in my notebook, my scorecard, putting it on my OneNotes on my computer. But once the game starts, like, you got to be in the game. You can't be in your computer. You can't be in your scorebook. You have to allow that stuff to just say, okay, I'm prepared. I did all the work this morning, and now like let's let it play out and let all the facts that we have, or all the statistics we have, or all the storylines we have, kind of aid to what's happening in the game.
One more question for you, and then I'll let you go, because I know you've got to get on Sirius XM. That's a whole other part we haven't talked about.
Whole other job.
but in the changing landscape of television and baseball today, you mentioned how long that you worked with the Rockies, and now MLB has taken over Rockies broadcasts. What do you see as the evolution for televised baseball in what's to come in the near future?
Gosh, it's so hard to tell. I feel like it's changing every single day. And I feel like the Bally's roller coaster that continues to go, right? They're not on Comcast now. And what is that going to do in terms of the finances and how they're going to be able to get money to teams, and how, more importantly, how fans can watch their teams? My hope in all of this is that we don't lose a local flavor. I think more than any other sport, having local broadcasters to the game of baseball is so important, because those broadcasters are with the team each and every day. They're having conversations with players. They have relationships in the front office. They're in the know. Like, my hope is that we just don't strip the local broadcast away from the game. And I know there's been a lot of talk about, after COVID, possibly doing world feeds and having broadcasters not travel. And it just, to me, doesn't make sense, because I think fans feel connected to teams when they hear their broadcasters, their local broadcasters telling that team's story, and feeling connected, and feeling like they can watch the same people every night and hear stories, and I just feel, again, like a togetherness of being one with that team. So that's my hope, is that through all of this, however it shakes out, I know it's a business, I know people need to make money, but I hope the local broadcaster is not affected in terms of all of it.
Well, Jenny Cavnar, play-by-play voice for the Oakland A's, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really do appreciate it, and looking forward to our paths crossing somewhere along the way here.
Somewhere, some city. Thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thanks to all of you for listening to this episode. We'll be back soon with another episode. Take care.